Well, you are not alone tonight in this country if you disapprove of Donald Trump's presidency. A new poll finds the highest disapproval number that Donald Trump has ever had. If you disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president, you are joined by 63% of Americans in that.
He doesn't just go after Trump, he dissects him like a late-night surgeon armed with a scalpel of reason and a smirk that says, "Really? This is your leader." Lawrence O'Donnell doesn't scream or rant. He lets the facts roast themselves one absurd contradiction at a time. The genius isn't in the insult, it's in how effortlessly he exposes the theater of a man still pretending the Oval Office is a TV set. What follows isn't commentary, it's demolition.
The difference between the Charles who calls himself a king and the Donald who wants to be one is that Donald Trump does not care what comes after him. Charles wants the monarchy to live forever. Donald Trump knows that he cannot live forever. Donald Trump knows that his presidency cannot live forever. So Donald Trump knows that all he has to do is keep the Epstein files secret for the next 3.5 years.
Trump's presidency has been a 4-year open mic night where the jokes wrote themselves and the punchlines ran for office. O'Donnell strolls into the chaos like a professor walking into kindergarten 1 filled with crayons tantrums and a man trying to color outside the lines while calling it leadership. The way he breaks down Trump's latest plans feels less like news analysis and more like public therapy.
More Americans disapprove of Donald Trump tonight than they did after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And you are not alone tonight if you disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the government shutdown. You are part of the 61% majority who disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the government shutdown. You are not alone tonight if you blame Donald Trump for worsening economic conditions. 61% blame Donald Trump's policies for worsening economic conditions.
Trump's governance still looks like someone trying to pass a pop quiz they never studied for insisting that confidence counts as knowledge. O'Donnell reminds viewers that the presidency isn't a pageant, yet here we are watching a man who treats every press conference like swimsuit season. The problem isn't the performance, it's that the stakes are real, and the applause comes from the same crowd that mistakes shouting for strength.
The intensity of Donald Trump's apparent need to keep the Epstein files secret becomes more vivid every day, especially with every new day of the government shutdown. Congressman Robert Garcia is a leader of the Democrats who have joined with some Republicans in the House of Representatives who are trying to have the Epstein files released, and he now sees the government shutdown as being as much or more about the Epstein files as it is about the federal budget.
It's hard not to marvel at the irony: a billionaire who whines like an underdog, a president who paints himself as persecuted while wielding full power. O'Donnell doesn't exaggerate the hypocrisy. He just holds up the mirror and lets the reflection collapse under its own weight. Every Trump statement is a plot twist in a reality show that refuses to end a cliffhanger with no script and no sense.
You are not alone tonight in this country if you think the country is moving in the wrong direction. According to a new ABC News poll, 2/3 of the country believes that. 67% say the country is moving in the wrong direction. ABC News notes majorities of Americans in urban, suburban, and rural areas say the country is moving in the wrong direction, as well as those with varying levels of education.
When O'Donnell talks about the economy, he doesn't just pull charts, he pulls receipts. The kind that show the self-proclaimed business genius Trump presiding over a debt explosion that would make any accountant cry into their spreadsheets. Yet Trump still sells it like success, as if bankruptcy has been rebranded as innovation. Only in his world could chaos be marketed as courage and incompetence redefined as instinct.
Well, as we reported here last night, Donald Trump will not have a third term in the presidency. We're beginning once again tonight with something that is not actually news, shouldn't be treated as news. Today, even Donald Trump himself gave up the game of using talk of a Trump third term as a way of diverting news attention away from the Trump cruelties, especially the denial of food to hungry people around the world, and soon here in the United States.
And then comes the Patriotism Act, the grand flag-waving spectacle by a man who treats loyalty like a disposable contract. O'Donnell doesn't mock patriotism, he mourns it, because under Trump it's become a stage prop. The flag is no longer a symbol, it's an accessory to the illusion. Every rally, every speech turns nationalism into performance art. Trump's words are verbal mazes where facts go to get lost. O'Donnell dissects them like an archaeologist, unearthing contradictions. His takedown isn't loud, it's precise, calm, and devastatingly clear. Watching him analyze Trump is like watching a scientist dissect a fever dream, every contradiction fitting perfectly into the puzzle of dysfunction.
But majorities of Americans in all of those categories believe the country is moving in the wrong direction. So you are not alone no matter where you live in this country if you think Donald Trump is moving the country in the wrong direction. In that same ABC News poll, 64% of Americans say Trump is going too far in trying to expand the power of the presidency. In 288 days in the presidency this time, Donald Trump has managed to unify the country in this.
When O'Donnell revisits Trump's cabinet chaos, it plays like a sitcom without a stable cast. One day you're fired, the next you're forgotten, yet the revolving door spins faster. He presents it as a case study in leadership insecurity, a man allergic to expertise but addicted to applause. His team isn't built to govern. It's built to flatter. Then comes foreign policy, Trump's version of diplomacy, where alliances are temporary and insults are currency. O'Donnell peels back the layers with surgical sarcasm, showing how Trump turns global strategy into playground theatrics. Every handshake becomes a power struggle, every summit a stage. Allies aren't partners, they're props. The irony. The man who vowed to make America respected turned it into a punchline with subtitles.
About them. Today on Air Force One, after his meetings in China, he told reporters something that would be unthinkable for any other president in that situation. He said, quote, "Taiwan never came up. It was not discussed." Taiwan never came up. No kidding. It never comes up unless the American president brings it up. No Chinese dictator has ever jumped into a discussion on Taiwan unless forced to by an American president. And so Donald Trump is treating himself as just a spectator in the back of the room, saying Taiwan never came up. Don't know why, it just never came up. Thereby proving the utter pointlessness of the Trump World Tour, other than as a distraction from the Epstein files and a distraction from the cruelties that Donald Trump is inflicting around the world and at home.
O'Donnell notes how every controversy fuels the myth, how scandal feeds the spotlight, and the show never ends because the applause must never stop. It's not leadership, it's dependency. Then there's Trump's obsession with social media, a digital diary of a man ruling by hashtags. O'Donnell doesn't just mock the tweets, he decodes the insecurity behind them. Validation masked as defiance, ego disguised as strength. The brilliance lies in the simplicity. Trump writes his own punchlines in real time, and O'Donnell simply connects them until absurdity becomes undeniable.
That is what the third term talk was supposed to do, and largely succeeded in doing, get the TV pundits to talk about the third term, instead of talking about taking food and medicine away from the poorest people in the world. When Donald Trump closed down the United States Agency for International Development, have pundits talk about the third term in welcoming tones in right-wing media and terrified tones in the rest of the media, so that they are not talking about the Epstein files, so that they're not talking about Donald Trump becoming the first president in history to suspend the food stamp program, the supplemental.
Even Trump's rallies get the O'Donnell treatment, surreal spectacles of self-pity and repetition. The cheering crowds, the recycled grievances, the performance of rebellion. O'Donnell paints it as a political greatest hits tour where the lyrics never change but the delusion grows louder. Then comes corruption, his forte. He exposes how Trump turns public service into private gain, a transactional presidency disguised as patriotism. Every deal has a loophole, every victory a price tag. O'Donnell connects the dots until the chaos starts to look intentional and profitable.
Well, Elon Musk experienced the seventh worst day of his life today, with the stock market crashing on fears of a Donald Trump-caused recession, which Wall Street is calling the Trumpcession. Getting a recession named after you as president is not easy. It usually is not so clear, not an absolute straight line of causation from presidential policies to a recession. And so no one called any of the recessions of our lifetimes a president recession, a Bush recession, or a Reagan recession, or, none of that. They didn't try to do that with the name of any other president.
Even Trump's war on the media becomes a paradox in O'Donnell's hands. He reveals the irony of a president who craves attention but despises scrutiny. Trump doesn't hate the media, he hates mirrors that don't flatter. As O'Donnell moves through the scandals, the hush money, the denials, the revolving door of excuses, the comedy becomes tragic. It's not a scandal, it's a lifestyle. Every boast hides insecurity, every fight is shadowboxing imaginary enemies. Real strength doesn't beg for applause, and O'Donnell makes sure viewers feel that truth.
This program always recognized the Trump third-term talk as a diversionary tactic, not to be indulged, but only to be identified as the diversionary tactic that it is. Today, Donald Trump himself finally was forced to admit today, no doubt at the urging of Republicans in Congress who would find it unbearable to go into next year's congressional elections with Donald Trump threatening, no matter how empty the threat, a third Trump term.
When O'Donnell talks about Trump's approach to crisis pandemics, protests, collapse, it plays like dark satire. Failure becomes performance. The optics matter more than outcomes. He doesn't exaggerate. He illuminates. Every false claim becomes a museum artifact under O'Donnell's microscope, catalogued and displayed for the world to see. He doesn't refute, he reminds. The delusion is self-built brick by brick. And when he turns to Trump's followers, it's not mockery, it's observation. They don't follow policy, they follow personality. The laughter isn't cruel, it's cathartic.
Donald Trump said he's going to change his illegal and unconstitutional tariff structure with China, leaving most of the illegal and unconstitutional tariffs in place. And he did that a week before the United States Supreme Court will hear the first case brought to them challenging the illegal and unconstitutional Trump tariffs. This week is the worst week for Donald Trump to be playing arbitrary public games with his tariffs, showing how non-policy based they actually.
Even Trump's legal troubles become comedy in O'Donnell's world, the indictments, denials, and déjà vu of dysfunction. He breaks it down like a never-ending procedural drama. Deny, deflect, declare victory, repeat. Then he zooms out, connecting Trump's chaos to the bigger picture. The genius of Trump's strategy lies in how his dysfunction dominates the narrative. O'Donnell calls it what it is: a feedback loop powered by ego and spectacle. The punchline isn't laughter, it's revelation. The man who wanted to be seen as the strongest ends up exposed as the neediest.
And so, impossibility is written all over the notion of a third presidential term, and Republicans are supposed to know that because it was the Republican Party that created term limits for the presidency through a constitutional amendment. After the most popular president in history, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was elected president 4 consecutive times beginning in 1932, Republicans went to work to prevent that from ever.
By the time O'Donnell wraps up, it's not anger that lingers, it's exhaustion mixed with clarity. He's less a commentator and more a cartographer, mapping dysfunction with wit and precision. The roast doesn't burn, it cleanses. A presidency built on spectacle, sustained by denial, destined for parody. Trump still spins, still sells, still insists the applause means success. But O'Donnell's calm demolition lingers like an echo, not through rage but through reason. The emperor's new clothes are on full display. And O'Donnell doesn't need to shout. He just lets the spotlight do its job.